Thank you very much, Pastor Cliff. Because we have a very special person in our midst, I want to sort of just also recognize Pastor NJ from the Scottish missions. I hope I've said that right, Pastor Cliff.
Yes.
Yeah? And you're going to help me with this because just to sort of break through to you, the British Union has quite a diverse cultural representation. And today I just want to unpick that with one such person, other than Pastor Cliff. Is Pastor NJ in the house? Can you just make yourself known?
He's there. I know he's there. He was there.
Oh, he's hiding.
Hiding.
Oh, here comes the voice. Now, can you guys recognize this voice? Right. All right. I'm going to just sort of share with you before we start. Just want to let you know that we're going to do a quick interview with Pastor NJ. He hails from the Scottish missions. And I'm going to just go through with him a few questions. Now, for those who've got your worksheet, we're going to sort of teasingly ask of you some questions as well. Aren't we, Pastor Cliff? Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, we're going to be doing this together. You're not going to leave me out here on my own. Yeah, it's a social distancing to get to Scotland. So bear with me. So NJ, we're going to ask the, oh, here he is. Oh, bless him. Yes.
In all his glory.
Oh, bless him. Good to see you, my friend.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. For the Pathfinders out there and those who are online, NJ is representing the Scottish missions today. And as I was saying before, speaking on cultural diversity, and the British Union is quite diverse in its cultural representation. And so I would like to ask the question, and we'll be looking at question 4 in no particular order, but we're looking at question 4, just to tease a few questions about one of my good friends, and NJ is one of my very good friends. And I'd just like to ask the question, or would you want to go ahead with the first question, Pastor Herman? You want to fire the first question, or you want me to fire it?
You go with the first question.
All right. Okay, so to our attendants out there who's looking on wherever you are on Facebook, I want you to put in the chat, where do you think Pastor NJ's culture originated from?
Okay, anybody, let's hear you. Where do you think Pastor NJ originates from? Not from Scotland, but before Scotland, right? Where does his culture originate from? Okay, anybody? Oh, somebody says Nigeria. Somebody says Zimbabwe.
Woo.
I'll see the Facebook ones are a little bit delayed, but some says Egypt.
Egypt. Is it Egypt? Is it Nigeria?
Maybe looks like a pharaoh. You know, the exuberance of a pharaoh, perhaps. You know, Ghana. Somebody says
Ghana.
Ghana. Somebody says definitely African.
All right. So we want to put the votes. How many votes can we get for? Shall we go for Ghana?
Yes, we've only got one Ghana.
All right. So how many? Okay.
I think we've got loads. Zimbabwe. Yes.
Wow.
It's a toss-up between Zimbabwe and Nigeria. Seems like it.
I think
on the Facebook chat as well.
NJ is going to keep them in suspense some more. All right. So, what do you think, Pastor Herman?
Let me just say there's somebody actually tried and said Brazil too.
Oh wow, Brazil! Now that's interesting. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Well, out of many one people, right, Pastor NJ?
Yeah.
All right. You tell us. You know, where did your culture originate?
Well, I'm originally from Zimbabwe.
Yay.
However, within Zimbabwe, my culture started from the Nguni people of Natal, which is in South Africa. So they originated from Natal in South Africa, but where do they live now? Those people I'm referring to in my culture, they are in the beautiful country of Zimbabwe.
Oh, wow. So thumbs up for those who got Zimbabwe. But we understand the he originated from South Africa. So thank you very much for giving us that quick update. So
that's
well
true.
done.
That's true, Dionne, because all good people, everything stems from South Africa,
Oh, we hear some personal
all the good
biases
people come
here.
from South Africa.
Okay, we'll be touching on some of that shortly. So well done on you guys. Well done. Thank you. Right. So one of the things I wanted to ask again is, Pastor, what language is spoken? Now, because you said Zimbabwe, you may have a lot of interesting people giving us responses. So the first person who can give us the language that you think is spoken by Pastor NJ. Have you got you got a response, have we?
No, let's see. Anybody, what language do you think is spoken by Pastor NJ? Somebody says Shona, another person says Ndebele, mostly Shona, Ndebele. It's between those two languages.
Wow. So what is it, NJ? Tell us.
Well, being someone who's so passionate about Zimbabwe, I will take all those.
I like it. I like that, Cliff. I like that.
Well, originally it's Ndebele, so that's Ndebele. It's a dialect of Zulu, I believe. Yes. So yeah, Ndebele.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, just to remind those with the worksheet, we are doing question 4 very quickly.
Yes.
We're going to ask you, please, to make sure you fill in those answers, because your friend that I'm introducing you to is our Scottish representative in the form of Pastor. I'm sorry, Pastor NJ. So, just to recap. So where did the culture originate from? Anybody want to give a guess? First person, just a hand raise and then write it in the chat. Just to recap, where did Pastor NJ originated from?
Where did it come from? All right.
I know Pastor Cliff even gave it away as well.
Zimbabwe. Yes, very much. Zimbabwe is where he originated from.
Right, so we're going to take Zimbabwe or we're going to take South Africa? We take Zimbabwe?
Well, if it was up to me, it would be South Africa, but
all right, I know I'm teasing you, Pastor. All right then. And the language, what language was spoken? Just to recap.
What language do you think, guys?
Type it in the chat so people could copy it from the chat.
Ndebele.
All right, thank you so much. I've got a good translator here, NJ. Isn't he great? And then I was just wondering, NJ, what religions are prominent in that society?
Okay, so Christianity is very prominent, but we also have some people who have the traditional religion, which believes in one supreme God, like. So this would be the traditional religion. Yeah, but Christianity is the most prominent.
Okay.
So for your notes, Christianity is the most prominent in that country. And what foods are typically eaten for breakfast?
For breakfast, it's porridge, thick, no, not as thick, but cornmeal porridge.
Okay. Is it the coarse, fine, medium? I mean, I only know that from Glasgow.
Well, actually, deep in the village, it would be the coarse. And then as you go closer to the city, it gets more refined.
Oh, my days.
I wonder what that says,
Yeah, true.
Okay, so what about lunch? I mean, hope nobody's hungry at this moment in time. Just bear with us. We're going to get back to cultural diversity. What about lunch? What sort of food do they?
Well, it's a variant of the same porridge, but this time it's thicker. So it's called isichwala, or sadza in Shona. Okay. And so you roll it up, and in the afternoon you have it with some relish as well. But you also have some sandwiches that are gradually coming in as well. You know, people like Uncle Clifford have introduced these sandwiches, and sadly, people in Zimbabwe are now also having sandwiches. But
Yeah.
usually it was isichwala. You know, you were working in the field, so you needed something,
Substantial.
solid.
All right. Okay, and supper. What do you guys have for supper?
While you think about summer, there's a lot of people actually, rooting for Zimbabwe in the chats here. Really resonating with the food that's being eaten. They really you made them all hungry now. Pastor NJ.
Well, NJ, you started a reformation here. What about supper?
Somebody's asking if you could type how Sechwala is spelled, Pastor NJ.
Okay, I hope I know how to type it. Isichwala. Okay, there you go.
Okay, there you go. Isichwala.
Thanking you. Now, I wanted to ask a very interesting question. Now we've got everyone hungry and taste buds salivating. How are the eating habits influenced by the food that's available in the country?
Okay, so some of the food is seasonal, so you don't have it deep into the winter, or you don't have it into the next fall. So that usually changes, but the kind of vegetables and the kind of grains can be stored and eaten later. So that tends to influence the kind of food. The seasonal nature will influence the kind of food that we actually are having. But during times when there was drought, we've had to import food as well. And so we started eating, I remember growing up, and we started having this yellow maize. So isichwala, which I referred to earlier on, is cornmeal, but it's white. But then in a year where there was drought and hunger, we were having some yellow imported one from Kenya, actually. It was imported from Kenya. And we actually called it Kenya. And so, it was good.
All right. The one that you said white, is it another name for it? Is it semolina? I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, it looks similar, but it's not exactly semolina.
Okay.
Cornmeal. We call it thick cornmeal porridge.
Okay. And looking, now that you're in Scotland, are there cultural traditions that are different from yours in Scotland versus England versus, the country of your origin? And what are they?
Yeah, so we've got things like, certainly the kilt is a much different way of dressing compared to the dress in Zimbabwe. We have something similar, but it's not a kilt. It only covers the very front part, and everything else is bare. So not exactly like a kilt, but it's skirtish as well. But we also have other items that would be different in terms of when you look at when a couple want to get married, they have to pay a dowry in Zimbabwe, but not necessarily in Scotland. There isn't anything like a dowry. And then the communal culture. In Zimbabwe, you can come out of your house and you meet someone on the street, you start telling them the dream you had last night and how much it was troubling your soul. But you can't quite do the same here in Scotland.
Right.
You may run yourself into trouble. Although the people are as nice, but they may not just be used to that openness and communal kind of spirit.
Okay. So, Pastor Cliff, got any questions for NJ?
Well, somebody said here that they also wear a hairband and a blanket to help support the babies. Now I know that's common. Seen that in Africa. Where the blanket is tied behind and the baby sits there.
Okay.
And the woman goes on with her work, while the baby just sits at the back there and sleeps eventually.
Yes, indeed.
That is enormous to see.
So that's very popular way of carrying the babies. So I wish I could demonstrate. You'd get the baby. Can you see the baby?
Yes.
Yeah, so this would be the baby, and then we'll put them on the back, and then we'll take a towel and wrap them and make sure they're safe and secure there.
Wow.
I will not try anything further than that because this baby may go crashing down.
And we understand that that's actually a very comfortable way for the baby. The babies are very, very comfortable being carried like that. So a lot of them fall asleep there,
Yes.
behind the
Yes.
mom's back.
Yeah, true, true. That's how I grew up. I grew up in those comfortable backs of my parents, my sisters, because we share the load.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of culture and customs and traditions, what customs or traditions that are originally from your country that you can identify in your family here or other families that live in the UK? What customs or traditions from the original culture, such as that of Zimbabwe, that has continued, by your family living in the Scottish Isles?
So some of the cultural things we are continuing.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, we have dowry, certainly. I have 3 children, 2 girls, and should any boy be interested in my girls, they should make sure they can pay a dowry, and it's nothing less than, we're talking 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 pounds.
Pounds, wow.
You know, and so this is a way of saying to me that we will look after your daughter, because when people were growing up, if that young man couldn't raise the amount, that meant his uncles, his relatives didn't like him because he was a naughty boy, chances are. Because he would go around to all the relatives and he should be able to collect enough to pay the dowry, unless there was a problem somewhere, somehow. And so the dowry was one of those proof tests about this boy's how character assessment, you know.
Okay. So what happens with that money, Pastor NJ?
Well, it obviously goes to me as the father. Well, and we use it for the wedding as well, and it's usually can be passed on as gifts to the uncles, everyone who was involved, and but mainly it will also contribute to the wedding. And because I have a son as well, one day he would like to get married, and so I will then use that to pay for his dowry. So it's so integrated. It makes it so warm a system in its pure form. I mean, some people now are calling for iPhone, whatever the latest iPhone is, and the iPad for the dowry. So it's being adulterated.
Okay.
I also understand someone in the chat mentioned that they also use the monies for if they had a baby, like a baby shower or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, NJ, so that sounds like it's about
baby
right.
shower.
All right. So holidays, Christmas is coming and the geese are getting fat. I was just wondering, NJ, do the people in Zimbabwe celebrate holidays like they do in Scotland, as they do in England? And what customs do they have for celebrating the different holidays?
Yeah, so we have Christmas is one of those holidays that was everyone looked forward to, because we have relatives in South Africa. That's when they came down and made sure they were as far as possible from people like Uncle Clifford Herman, so that they come and celebrate with us in Zimbabwe. And so it was always a blessing. We would all gather together, go to the village. Maybe they would slaughter a beast, like have beef or a cow or goat, and some chickens, and it was always a lovely time. Everybody together, and would eat together, sometimes eating from the same plate, you know, and things like that, which were very important to us. So that's much different here. Christmas is mainly close, immediate family, and some people do have extended family. But to us, you could never celebrate Christmas on your own. It was always a community and extended family.
I like the word community. You know, that resonates with me, as Pastor Cliff said.
True.
That word community, I really like that word, and I really do believe in it, not just in lip service, I really do. So just quickly moving on. Can you help us to identify 5 ways then? Hope that's not too much as part of a dowry. Identify 5 ways in which you are similar. Zimbabweans are similar to Scottish folks, and 5 ways in which you're also different.
Well, the similar ones would be the holidays and Christianity as the leading religion as well. I think it's the same here in Scotland. Church of Scotland has still has some form of command in the religious circles. And then wedding ceremonies will more or less be the same, white wedding, though there will be more expression and more passion in Zimbabwe, and people would really go out to show they're celebrating. And then sports. So football is one of the leading sports in Scotland, just the same in Zimbabwe. So those would be some of the similarities that we have. So I mentioned holiday sports, I mentioned weddings and Christian religion. Yeah, and then if we are looking at the differences, the dowry certainly would be one, and some element of respect in the culture that the children, I must say sometimes the respect is demanded when it's not deserved, but hey, that happens, and children will have a high level of respect for the parents. They will stand up for them in the bus, for example, or in a mode of transport. They would have priority. Yes. The adults would. And communal greeting, that would be another difference. You actually shake hands or you show the respect in different ways, and it was all part of the joy of salutation, and when you're saying goodbye as well. And then there will be things like time orientation. So in Zimbabwe, we're more laid back time-wise, whereas here, if you say 2 p.m., people want you to be there at 1:45 p.m. Well, 5 to 2 for me usually. But they usually have that kind of time orientation here. Whereas in Zimbabwe, it's event orientation. It's that you got to the event more than the time that you got there. So those are some of the main differences.
Right.
Dowry, respect, greeting, and culture, event instead of time orientation.
Okay. Thank you for that. And if anyone wants to add, please do use the chat so we can pick that up. Big places like outdoor pizza shops, aka big barbecues. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, big barbecues certainly does. Some of us were vegetarian though, so with time we started roasting our cabbages, and then we realized it's not working. And we found it a bit difficult, and some of us regressed into eating meat again.
Oh dear. And I just love the sense of humor. And extended family care also is another one someone's mentioned in the chat. Yeah, extended family care, NJ?
Yes, extended family care, Chelsea. You got that one right, girl. Well done. And so that was part of the communal aspect that I was referring to.
Okay.
That it's one big happy family, a very communal culture, very warm, close together.
That's right.
Okay, and just wanted to ask you, how do you feel about those differences?
Well, sometimes they can be a blessing. Sometimes it can be a bit challenging, because we were colonized by the British, for example. So sometimes you just don't like being on time as a way of showing that I'm not the colonizer, kind of thing. So you sometimes will resent some things, even if they are good, based on the fact that there was colonization before. But there's things like time orientation, and you need to learn to keep time. So now you realize you show people you respect them when you can take them seriously by being there on time. Then there's things about being passionate about differences, diversity, is found in the Bible, so we have to celebrate this diversity. the fact that people are different becomes something to celebrate and to shun. So gradually I am learning and hoping my children will learn that as well, because they were born here. And, you know, it may be difficult for them if I don't lead the way by showing my appreciation of the local culture.
Right. I wanted to just pick up on the point you've made that your children were born here. So I take it that they attend church here and they worship here. How different is it to worship in Zimbabwe?
Also, Zimbabwe being, you know, that communal kind of element, the worship is also very passionate. You know, people will sing loud but the voices would be so beautiful and they would blend together. So that element of the music aspect is very strong. So you don't need a keyboard, and hardly ever use the keyboard in Zim. And other aspects like instruments, some they couldn't be afforded, so it was always difficult. But the worship, the passion, expression of passion is different. So when I preach, during COVID, I've had to preach several times in Zimbabwe. So I actually realized that I adapt to my audience, and I would preach with more passion, with the word when I am, you know, speaking to the people in Zimbabwe. And then when I was preaching today in Aberdeen, brethren, the Lord is saying to us, you know, some people actually wonder, do you really mean what you are saying? You are not doing it passionately. And so, yeah, it's those changes that you realize in the worship styles.
Okay, right. And I want to leave the last question to Pastor Cliff. Pastor Cliff, got a last question here? I understand that in the chat that there's always followed by some big amens.
Amen. Amen. Tell them. Batshele mfundisi. Isho.
All right. So now you guys have had an expression of worship.
Oh dear.
I don't want to take the last thunder, but Pastor Cliff, any last questions just to mop up this bit? And
no, sister, I am blown away already.
Wow. I was just wondering, as Pastor NJ goes, if you could just tinkle on that ukulele so we can hear a sound, a different sound in terms of a cultural sound because of the singing. Just a little sound, just a little sound.
Well, you should have told me. I would have brought the bagpipe.
Oh my days, I should have. Oh my days.
No.
Yes, I would have.
Oh my!
Thank you so much.
You.
So next time,
well done, Cliff.
okay?
Well done, Cliff.
Thank you very much, NJ.
You're most welcome. Blessings to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, guys, we were discussing about a very live expression from our pastor about cultural diversity, and just want to go through the requirement. The requirement asks of us, one of the first things it asks is about defining culture. We talk about cultural diversity. Pastor talks a lot about different things, which we're going to pick up on as we go through this session. So without any further ado, can you just put in the chat, what's your understanding of culture? Define culture. And define, so what is culture? I think Pastor Cliff, you are muted.
Okay, some says different things to others, culture, way of life, your origin. Those are all definitions about culture. Beliefs. Not that I shared that.
So beliefs. Right. I take the view that, yeah, it's about beliefs, values, behavior, material objects. Some people may consider that cultural in terms of the doll that Pastor NJ showed, which may be a hint to his way of life. But culture is the arts, the customs, the habits that characterize a particular society or nation. And the one that we looked at today was Zimbabwe. So while the art of a group is often considered to be the mark of a culture, in actual fact, it is the daily habits that determine culture. So for those who are filling in the handbook, it's about the mark of culture is around the way of life, people's way of life, as well as the daily habits of a group of people that, that marks the differences from those. Now, in terms of culture, I also want to just share with you the question that was also asked, what is cultural diversity? So cultural diversity is a variety of human societies or cultures in a specific region. And just like how you guys saw Pastor NJ, and you had different ways of suggesting where he's from, you know, there are different places such as New Zealand, and you guys were talking about different countries such as that you thought he was from, even Brazil. So for example, in Australia and New Zealand, the cultural diversity there is the result of the original inhabitants, plus the multitude of different cultures that have arrived in the past 200 years. So cultural diversity in itself is a modification of somebody's culture, even in terms of what we've just described and listened to from Pastor NJ. So just moving on, just my flash of cards, culture is really a way of life in terms of the attitudes, the beliefs, the way of life in terms of the language, the customs, the rituals, the behavior, even the faith, the Adventist faith, you know, or Catholic or Baptist, you know, the foods, we've talked about some of the food, and some of you start to salivate and think about your childhood possibly. The art, the cultural art, the drama, the music that was played by the ukulele just a while ago, that helps enrich and make culture vibrant. So culture can be defined as the behaviors, the way of life in terms of arts, belief, food of a population that are passed down from generations to generation. And it is sometimes called, as I said, a way of life. So culture is a way of life. So if culture is a way of life, what is diversity? Just give you a few minutes to just put some notes down in the chat.
Okay, what is diversity, guys? What would you say? It's a definition of diverse. It's a big word.
Yes, indeed. Very, very
diverse.
Big.
Changing, somebody says. Not many accustomed habits. Oh, that's culture. Trying to see the Facebook, few minutes, few seconds delay. Somebody's different ways of living, that way of life.
Different ways of living. I like the word different. People. I like the word different. Yeah, that's moving to me. Yes.
Modification influenced by others or different lifestyle.
Yes, indeed, indeed. It is definitely a modified or a modifying of a culture, so to speak. And Christianity in itself is a modification of a culture, and it, you know, in terms of when we think about the Protestantism and how that came into being, that was modified as well. And sometimes biblical truths can be modified, so we need to be careful when we talk about diversity and not diversifying the truth as in the Word of God. So what is diversity? One more comment, please, Pastor. Any more in the chat?
Well, there's somebody has an example here that instead of carrying the baby on your back, you can carry the baby in a pram,
right?
Pushchair. So that's how diverse, different way of doing this. And yeah.
And I like that. I like that word different. As I said, it's a mix of differences that comes out in people and their culture. So it may come out in terms of their gender, and I'm not going on a gender item here today. I'm just trying to illustrate in terms of male, female. It's also in terms of age, how people may perceive things. It may be in terms of race or ethnicity. It may be in terms of the we talked about culture and we define culture in terms of disability or abilities. It could be sexual orientation, religion.
Dionne, can I just interrupt you? Are you sharing your screen? Stuff you're talking about is on the screen because you're not sharing it.
Oh dear.
Not being shown. I think it's
that's something.
It went away. I thought maybe you're just talking, but I didn't realize that you actually. Somebody said that the screen went away.
Sorry, I have to. I'm sorry about that. Let's try and get this all shared. Right, it would appear that that's a bit of a shame. Right, I think I've just taken my screen. You're definitely not seeing my screen.
No, nobody. No, we're not.
I'm sorry about this.
Okay.
Can you see my screen now?
There, it's getting there. It's getting there.
I'm sorry,
But it's not see it. Yes. Okay. There we see. There we go.
Right, I'm so sorry about that. So in the interest of time, I'm going to need to rattle on now. So we were just talking about what diversity is, and it's about a mix of different people. And so I just wanted to then bring together the whole conversation that we've had pertaining to this session. So in terms of the I hope you can see this part of my screen because it's a bit sluggish. So here's an activity I'd like to do with you. So if you have culture, the definition of culture plus diversity, it's a very simple one. Write in the chat, what do you think we'll have as a potential answer?
So what do you think complete that equation? Culture, based on what we talked about.
Diversity is equal to what?
So could be that your way of life plus the change in that.
Yes.
What would it be? Do you think, guys?
Right. Have you got an answer out there?
Nope.
All right. I'm going to push it along. We get a mixture of things. We get different things, different ideas.
Okay.
Different individuals valuing each other regardless of the skin, the intellect, the talents, or the years. And that's diversity. Cultural diversity is so rich. It's about multiracial community. That word comes up again, which Pastor NJ spoke of, which I love. And it comes up in the form of cultural heritage, ecosystems. It sometimes may have negative or positive impacts, depends on one's perception of cultural diversity. I'm going to touch a little bit on that. Okay, so in terms of cultural diversity, it's basically what I'm trying to get at. So we're looking at the art of thinking independently, but together. That family, that extended family, thinking together and with each other, working together as a team. And in one of the presentations earlier, it talked about together, everyone achieves more. That sense of diverseness of thinking brings together independent thoughts, but together there is so much positivity that comes from it. So that's our first requirement, looking at defining cultural diversity. So cultural diversity is a way of life and an art of thinking independently together. So that would be my personal definition that I'll give to you. So the requirement number 2 has to do with stereotypes. Now, when some of you saw Pastor NJ, you may have had different thoughts. Some thought he was from Brazil. Some thought he was from South Africa. Some thought he was from possibly Kenya, or who knows, Jamaica. Some thought he was from, Zimbabwe and
Egypt.
and Egypt as well. And thumbs up for those who thought these things. It's a way of, so what would you put in the chat? What is stereotype?
Okay. All right, guys. What is a stereotype? I know that's a word
And that's a biggish kind of a word for some of you out there, but we're going to try and break it down.
Yes,
and then we're going to try to identify how we may have stereotyped people in the past. And I'm going to share some examples as to how we may have done that.
Okay.
So just write very quickly, you'll understand what
discrimination, somebody said.
Discrimination. That's a big word.
It's a big word, isn't it?
I know we looked at cooperation, it's also a big word.
Yes.
Wow.
Anybody? Yeah. So what is stereotypes? What would you define stereotype, guys?
So someone's saying it's discrimination. Okay. Is there any other?
No, there's no one there. It seems like the word is too big for people to.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question out there, and you just put why in the chat. Have you ever heard the word bias?
Oh, somebody says making derogatory statements.
Wow.
Being biased, yes.
Making.
Our Pathfinders are using very, very big words. Be above my pay grade.
Statements and discrimination. Yeah, those are the two we have. So yes, making
bias. Being biased.
So we've heard the term bias out there.
Yeah.
So, and we've heard about making derogatory statements and discrimination. There's also a very hot topic in the newspapers. I won't touch the word, but it sounds like the rushing wind. So I'll leave you to work out what I'm trying to say. And it's very topical within the news at the moment. I am not here to advocate. I'm just here to just look at the term stereotype and identify how we may have stereotyped people in the past. I'm not looking at immigration in any way, but bias is associated with the word stereotype. And it's being biased, and that's being defined as having prejudices in favor of or against one thing or another, a person or a group of people compared with another. Usually it's in a way that's considered to be unfair. So stereotype is about being unfair. And within this country, there are laws and rules and protocols about being fair. Now, what does unfair mean to you? Now, how does it feel when something has been done or said and you feel it's unfair? Okay. It would conjure some feeling, wouldn't it? So what does it feel like if someone was to say something derogatory to you? Could you put it in the chat for us, please?
Okay, there's already people going, it's anger, ashamed, somebody said, sad, angry, furious, shamed.
Thank you for putting those thoughts in the chat. So what I'm picking up here from this is that stereotype brings out negative feelings, and bias can be seen as the overarching definition of stereotype, and prejudice because it is how we associate the traits, and it's usually negative to a specific group of people or peoples. So when we're looking at what is stereotype, it could be a collage of things, and the truth could be hidden under the collage. And so what I'm trying to suggest here is that a stereotype is like a mistaken identity or idea or belief that many people have about a thing or a group that is based upon how they look on the outside, which may be untrue or only part of the truth. And because it's untrue doesn't make it true. Because you think it's true doesn't make it true. So stereotyping people is a type of prejudice. And because of what it is on the outside, it reflects a small part of who a person is. Now, can you give me some examples? Now we had some examples, but I'm just going to tease and ask for 2 examples in the chat. The first 2 will run with that, Pastor. And about to head towards winding up, so almost there. I'll just jump to this one and sort of reach for the stars on this one. So, for example, you may have a group of Italians who you might think is a mafia. Well,
yes.
Does being Italian make you mafia? No.
No.
You may have this one about Seventh-day Adventists are members of a cult. But being a member of the Church of England, does it make you a cult? You may have another one, that pastors' wives, they all can sing very well. Pastor, does your wife sing very well?
Well.
Very well. You won't say very, but well. So reaching for the stars, we sometimes think about things that are not necessarily true, and then we pin it on a person or a group of people. And so stereotype is about attaching an idea or an image to a person who belongs to a specific group. Is that clear? So let's talk about being British. Write for me a few words. You can tell I'm British because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just some words in the chat now. We've looked at someone from Zimbabwe, and we looked at someone representing not the Irish mission, the Scottish missions. And so I just want to know, finish the sentence for me. You can tell we are British, or you can tell I'm British because?
Because of our tea or our accent, somebody says.
Wow.
You know, can tell I'm British because, okay, anyone else that's there? Guys, I can tell I'm British because my attire.
Attire. Now look at this. Look at some of these attire. You can tell I'm British because
ways of
I'm a different person when the sun's out.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm British because I'm lost without my dog. Now, what sort of a... You can tell I'm British because I need a cup of tea. Or you can tell I'm British because I never refuse a drink. You may say, you can tell I'm British because I love to, you know, I'm very patriotic and I wouldn't live anywhere else but Britain. Or is it because I live in the past and we're very much about our history and we're very proud of our history? I have a very noble friend that I like to introduce you all to. Yes, he's from the African continent, and yes, it's not quite Pastor Herman today, but it's my friend Nelson Mandela. He shared a very, very profound quote, which I felt just as I wind up, I'll leave with you. When we think about cultural diversity, when we think about stereotyping, we may not realize when we think and when we speak, but we may slaughter one another in our words and our attitudes. And we slaughter one another sometimes in our very thoughts, in the stereotypes and the mistrust that lingers in our heads, and the words of hate that spews from our lips, or in our WhatsApps. And sometimes it ends up as bullying. And I'm not going topical because there's things in the newspapers now about that. But what I'm trying to suggest here is one songwriter from a particular island said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourself can free your minds. So just to calm down on a few notes, just to finish up, I just want to quickly look at what the basic instructions before leaving Earth said about this topic of cultural diversity. And just want to touch base on three of these scriptures. The first one is from 1 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 20. And I'm just going to sort of repeat it out of my head. It says, to the Jews, I became like a Jew, to win the Jews to those under the law, that I may become like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. Now, it sounds funny, doesn't it? What exactly am I trying to say? The question is asked. How does this text explain the importance of cultural diversity awareness? Can I just quickly put something in the chat for us?
Okay. Anybody? Quick, you've got 1 minute to do it. What do you think? 1 Corinthians 9 verse 20, it says, I became like a Jew, to be like the Jew. Paul says. What does it say about cultural diversity?
How does this text explain the importance of it?
Somebody says to embrace another culture. What Paul did.
Definitely.
Be accommodative.
Yes.
Accommodating to take in the beauty.
Definitely. It's being accommodating. It's all of those. In order to reach people of different culture, it is important to understand that culture. And not impose your culture, but to understand their culture. And for them to feel accepted by you, you should consider adopting some of their practices. I'm not saying all, within reason of others, and not sort of impose your thinking or thoughts. And also I would want to suggest that by adopting a practice of being open and understanding, even to Christian beliefs, sometimes, people may think ill of certain behaviors, but when they understand why, things like alcohol drinking and gambling and how that can impact on someone's life and their family, it then shows how open-minded we need to be and not being biased. So the text itself is telling us that we can become to win those under the law or under the bondage of mental slavery, so to speak, in the concept of being stereotyped and shackled by that. Another text that we could look at is found in Galatians chapter 3, 27 to 29. And again, for time, I'll just quickly again repeat that from memory. So it says, for all of you who are baptized into Christ, you can be clothed yourself with Christ. And there's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs of the promise. Sounds complicated, but what I'm trying to ask for from the text is, what does this text say about all who are in the family of Christ?
Okay.
If we just had a phrase, just a phrase, a couple of words. If we were to have 10 words or less, what would that be? What does this text say about who we are in the family of Christ?
All right, guys. Somebody said we are a new creation, loving one another.
Right. I like that. In fact.
Okay. Somebody also said no barriers, no culture. We are all the same in Christ, which means we are all his children.
And I love that, because that's about the clothing. Because of our own selves, we will possibly, be horrible to each other. But as the text is saying, that we can be all one and belong to Christ. And to belong to means that we can be clothed in Christ, which means that the Christian sins can be covered in Christ. For what Christ has done for us, we can be liberated, and we can be liberated and be free mentally and spiritually, and love and embrace people, even though they may not have been kind to us. And instead of God seeing your sins and seeing what we may have said or done in the past that were not nice, then we can be assured that he will look beyond our faults and reinstate us as if we have never sinned. So God will still accept us once we accept Christ. We can be all one in Christ and belong to Christ. So this in itself helps us to know that as Christians, even within cultures, no matter what terrible things we've done, they'll be forgiven in the eyes of God. And that difference of our past can be forgiven. So Ephesians 2:14, and my last text, I just want to sort of share that with you in the point of a question. Again, this text talks about, for he himself is our peace, who has made the two one. I'm reading from the NIV version, or repeating from the NIV version, and has destroyed the barrier. And the reason why I like the NIV, because it talks about destroying the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. So Christ himself has been our peace, who has broken down every wall, and have destroyed that barrier that separates us as peoples, as cultures, as groups, of different ideologies and biases. And so this barrier spoken of in this verse is one that exists before time, before the Jews, before the Gentiles. And there's a lesson that can be applied. So just in the chat, just quickly as I finalize this last question, what should be the result then of accepting Jesus Christ into our lives? And how do you plan to apply this message to your everyday life as we leave this topic on cultural diversity?
There you go. What is it? What should be the result of accepting Jesus Christ into our lives? Ephesians 2 verse 14 that was read.
For he is our peace.
He himself is our peace.
Who has made the two one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it like the New Testament, the Old Testament, you have your own life, but Christ can make it new. So you can have a new testimony. So the old does not have to be following you through to be destructive and to be negative. It can be reinstated. So what was meant to destroy no longer needs to be a barrier as you communicate with others, and no need to be hostile in our thinking and in our way of life. So there are some lessons here to be applied between peoples of many cultures, two cultures, even in Britain, even in Zimbabwe, in Scotland. And as we embrace equal opportunities, that should be viewed through the lens of Christ, that we are all one. And Christians should accept and love one another as Christians and as Christ does. And not because you're Christian means you're going to accept or not. We've got values, moral values, British values as well. And we need to remember that, you know, whilst we were, you know, not as, you know, possibly in our best, we may have some cultural or personal biases that we're still struggling with. But I want to suggest that Christ can and does understand and can help us with, you know, and to forgive us and to have us renewing by this change by us, you know, of our own selves. We may not be able to change our mindset, but once we allow Christ into our lives, our cultural indifferences and differences can be acceptable to him. So I just want to leave you on this note to let you know that whilst we may have our differences, it is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. And it begins with you, it begins with me. It begins with you, and it begins with me to be equitable. So in summary, we are all different, but all part of one human race. Thank you very much.